there's one thing that keeps me up at night, and it's when my money doesn't feel right. When I don't have that safety net protecting me from anything that could go possibly wrong. Oh, by the way, my name is Carolyn. I'm a money coach with 29 years in finance and plenty of real life experience figuring out how to make ends meet, raise a family while still building my dream life. So let me tell you about a time when I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to turn. It was, I would say, 2 weeks before my wedding. And I drove a Honda Civic. Love that car. It was red, it was sporty, it was cute. And I remember taking it to the shop before, months before the wedding. And they were telling me, oh, that there's this little bracket that you need to repair. They didn't kind of explain that it was going to be anything major. So I didn't really pay attention to it. I did my regular oil change, whatever, and on I went about my business. Well, 2 weeks before I got married, I'm driving down the street, a local street, and all of a sudden I hear this big bang. And what had happened was the engine actually fell out of the vehicle, like it dropped. The bracket that they had been referring to was something that held the engine in place. And this was 2 weeks before the wedding. The car was right off. You could not put it back together. The engine was destroyed. It was just not worth it. The car was an older vehicle. And we were like, how are we going to manage for the next 2 weeks before we get married without a vehicle? So this goes back to what I was saying about not sleeping at night, the anxiety. It was really tough because all of our money was being focused into this wedding, right? And the things that we had afterwards, apartments, living where we're gonna live, all the stuff. And we couldn't scrape out more money for this car repair. And actually not a repair because the car was totaled. So it meant like renting a car and doing all these things, and that was not in the budget. So it really was stressful, and it was a lesson learned, to be honest with you, because having that extra pool of money would have really helped with other things that kind of went on. And you also have problems that go along with the weddings too, right? My husband and I, we paid for it ourselves, and so we wanted things to be right, and yeah, you just had enough to move us along through the process. And so it was really a challenging time. When things like that go wrong, it really takes a toll on your emotions because you feel like everything is going wrong. Even though, you've done your best to plan and make everything right, something triggers and something goes wrong and it's all your fault. And I have a hard time sharing that with people when things are going wrong, when things are going bad. You think it's all your fault, so you don't want to share and ask for help. And it takes a toll. It takes a toll on your emotions. Now, I didn't feel irresponsible because it was something that was kind of out of my control, but I did feel unprepared. And that sat with me for longer than I probably choose to admit. After the wedding, there was a lot that happened, and I will tell you in another episode. But when we were getting back into our day-to-day life, it still kind of haunted me about the not being prepared part. And now we didn't have a car. So it was really tough kind of getting around, getting to work. We were in a new place, and it was challenging at times. And the thought of preparation, which I thought I was, like I said, I thought that the wedding was planned beautifully. I had all these things lined up, and so many things didn't go the way that we thought. And that's when I realized that credit cards, lines of credit, things like that, they're not a safety net. They're not the place you should go to if something kind of goes wrong. And this is when I kind of discovered about having an emergency fund. And I know that a lot of the articles that I read at the time, and even now, they say, you're supposed to have 3 to 6 months of income. Well, I was just struggling to get by. I didn't have a vehicle. I was getting to work, going home, doing my thing. We were just newly married. We'd had, expenses. Where am I going to come up with 3 to 6 months worth of income to put in a savings account just to sit there? Right? And this is kind of where I think a lot of people struggle with. It's the thought that, oh, I know I need to have this, but where am I going to start? Where am I going to get the money for that? Yeah, why aren't we taught this in school? Why doesn't people say, these are the things that are going to give you peace of mind? These are the things that we should be building when we're in our 20s, early 20s, when we don't have as many responsibilities. Why doesn't anybody tell you that? So by the time you get to your 30s, you're like, okay, I have this nest over here. I have my goals that I want to do over here. And this is where I want to project and go in the future. Why doesn't anybody tell us that? Until it's too late, until we're in our 30s and we're kind of snowballing because we have all these different type of expenses and things that are going on. So if this feels familiar to you, you're not alone. I've walked the path before and many others have as well. It really doesn't mean that you failed. It just means you're human. So if there's one thing that I can suggest or kind of encourage you to do, is to just start with baby steps, right? An emergency savings is your safety net. It's the place where you can go when something truly, like your engine falls out of your car, happens. And it can begin with as little as you have. A lot of people, they kind of start these $50 automatic savings coming out of their account, right? $50, you don't feel it as much, right? But really kind of dive deep into your current expenses. See if there's something, so if you start with the $50, then see if there's something that you can just eliminate, because this emergency fund is probably more important than something else that you spend money on. And add that amount to your starting point, which if it's $50, then we're adding it to the $50. So that way you see momentum. And as soon as you see momentum, you're going to be able to build on that. And over time, you will get to the amount of money that you need to feel security, to feel safe, to stop worrying at night. So I just want to encourage you to stay focused. Don't beat yourself up about things that have happened that have caused you to be in the place that you're at right now. Just take one step at a time and create a plan. Create a plan that's reasonable, that you can execute and that you can feel good about. And just review it every month. Can I do more? Maybe that was too much. Maybe I'll do less. And you just adjust and move from there. Whatever you do, I believe in you. And you got this.